Welcome to the Embodied Union podcast. I'm Charlie.
I'm Lindsay.
And today we're going to talk about, is it your relationship or is it everything else?
Yeah, like the external factors of life encroaching on your beautiful, epic relationship.
Yeah, like the stress seeps in and suddenly you think your partner's the problem or you're the problem, and like things can get catastrophized and dramatized when sometimes there's just a undercurrent of like stress in the system, stress in the household, stress at work, stress in the body. And we can be so quick to just be like, you're the problem.
Yeah, because when we look at it in this way, it's when we're in relationship and we feel fine, well then it's got to be the other person. You know, if we're not having this level of awareness or having the full like perspective of ourselves or the ability to be able to see ourselves, especially when we're stressed. So like I know in my case is that when I start to notice there's something with you, I actually stop these days and just go, it's probably me. Like, you know, the times in my relationship with you, it's like Charlotte's being mean, and it's like, you're a sweetheart. I never have to really think about it like that. It's just like, must be something in me that feels unsettled, you know, and then I'm able to self-reveal and we're able to lean into repair that way by me just owning it.
So I think that really speaks into how important it is to have this level of self-awareness, because it's true. What I love about you, one of the things, is that you'll often just announce to me, I'm not good today, or like something's off, like it's a me, like something's happening for me.
Yes.
But you have the awareness to do that. You check in, you can sense that your nervous system is off, and you name it before, like you know me, and if I start feeling something's wrong with you, but you haven't named it, and I'm asking you what's wrong, and you're like, I'm fine. And I'm like, well, I know something is wrong because that's my hypervigilance and kind of anxious attachment. So it's like just having the self-awareness so we actually can name when we do feel a little bit dysregulated. So then our partner knows, all right, that's when you say that to me, I'm like, cool, that's where you are. I can now check in with me. Yep, I'm actually good. So if anything comes up in the day, I don't actually need to take it personally. Or if you say something that's a bit short with me, or I'm like, I actually don't even need to make that about me because he's already named that he's off today, and like, can I give him grace and permission to have an off day? Yes, I can.
Yeah, so I guess, you know, the reason why we're having this podcast episode is really just around like acknowledging these outside factors. And I think why we're talking about is when couples don't acknowledge the outside effects or what else is happening outside of the relationship or in our own lives, what impact that has on the relationship, you know. And that's when couples can feel like they're constantly fighting, or say, for example, a person feels very like unsettled, they've had a stressful day and their partner gets home and it's like, oh great, you're finally home, I really need you right now. And then that person that's just come home isn't able to hold it because they're stressed too. And then it becomes this, you're not meeting me and I'm not meeting you. And it feels like, you know, we're going to fight to try and create connection, and it can cause
the relationship's like the scapegoat, you know, it's like becomes the bad guy when really there's just like external factors.
Yeah. Stress, work, you know, because that's what I think of. Like as a man, it's like work stuff. If you've got kids, it's obviously kids stuff, everything else going on there, you know, like making sure that you're filling your own cup enough and everything else that's going on in your life. Like we all lead such busy lives these days with the amount of work that we do and the amount of like things that we want to accomplish. So I can only imagine it's the same for women, where it's, you know, business, work, could be study as well, like everything that we're trying to fit on our plate, and we're unable to sort of hold it all sometimes. And then, yeah, the relationship cops it.
I think for a lot of people as well, there's just not that level of awareness around like your own nervous system, you know, like because as a human, we operate with this mechanism of projection. So like if my nervous system's off, but I don't even know about my nervous system, like I'm going to make it a you thing.
Yes.
I'm going to make it a you thing. It's just like, so if everyone could just get on board with understanding their nervous system and like having practices to settle their nervous system so that, because like the reason why we fall down in relationship is really because we're projecting our feelings unconsciously onto the other. And like making you responsible for my dysregulated nervous system because I don't have the awareness to just know, it's that time in my cycle, or I'm just feeling like I don't know, for whatever reason. Like, I think it's really important that we know when it's a me thing and we know when it's a you thing. Because then there's just way less projection and there's way less taking it personally.
Yeah, and I feel like if that's not addressed or understood, it can be a doubling up as well. So it's, for example, if I feel dysregulated and I'm not naming it, and then I act out of sorts, and then you have a reaction to me, the one being out of sorts, then I can double down even harder. So like it amplifies it. It becomes this thing that it creates even more dysregulation.
And then it does become a relationship problem, right?
Yes.
So if we can just, the idea is that we catch all of this as individuals right at the beginning when we notice that we're off, so that it's, again, self-revealed, it's named, it's put in the space, so that our relationship doesn't have to be the scapegoat. And like one of the things that we know with working with couples, and even for ourselves, when external stress is happening, one of the first things that takes a hit is intimacy, and like sex levels tend to go down. And then the couple can then hyper focus on, we aren't having sex. Lack of sex is the problem. So let's try and have more sex. Let's try and create more intimacy. But it's on top of external stresses and nervous system stresses. And so when then that doesn't work and it feels like a bit awkward and it's clunky and it's not really flowing, then it's like, the problem is just like, it's getting bigger and bigger, like our intimacy, when it's actually got nothing to do with the intimacy. Like before the intimacy falls away, you've probably stopped playing and laughing and being in creativity and doing adventure and those things because you're stressed and because of the external.
Things become like things that were once a priority in the relationship, about like doing fun things together, activities, those sorts of things, they start to drop off as like other things that aren't filling our cup become more important. And a lot of the time it's, I'm doing this for you, or I'm doing this for us at the expense of myself, and that causes, resentment towards the actual relationship. Like what I want to be really clear about is, say this week I felt a bit unwell, and it's me just naming that I don't feel good. Like I have a bit of chronic pain as well. So it's like after days and days and days of chronic pain and not feeling well, it's like my agitation or my low capacity can then start to be make it you or an us thing. But it's like really knowing that it's just a me thing. And sometimes it can even be just a you thing and just a me thing and nothing to do with the relationship at all. So I think that's like something to really be mindful of when we're in relationship, or when it's not feeling the best. It's like, we're actually good, and that gets to be something that we can cherish and notice for ourselves. And it's like, okay, I need to go and fill my cup. I need to do these things that are really going to like nourish me and support me. And maybe I'm low on time. Like I think for most people that are busy, it's if I'm working out of home and I'm on the way home, it's like, can I take a couple of moments before I get out of the car and walk through the door? Is just like, who is walking through the door? Like what kind of person, and what's my energy like coming in, such that I'm mindful of that. So when I'm there and I'm with everyone and greeting everyone, I'm ready to go, and like being mindful of that, I think that can make a massive difference to people.
So I suppose the antidote, as it always tends to be, is having a level of self-awareness, having a strategy to come into mindfulness, to come into presence, to have a level of, I guess it's vulnerability and self-responsibility. It's all the things that we talk about all the time. So it's like, that means that you get to take care of your own nervous system, own what's yours, and be responsible for how you then show up inside partnership.
Yeah, you might get home, and that is actually the first thing that might happen, is you might come straight into the door and go, can I have a couple of minutes? And and it's up to me then just to reveal what's going on for me, just so we're on the same page. It's like, babe, I don't feel good today. I feel stressed or panic or low energy, and I haven't got much to give. And I know that it's like, whatever might be happening, but it's, can we do that? Can we have that get together?
This is why self-revealing is like the best thing that, I'm going to say we invented it. Well, like, I know it's a universal collective thing, but I'm sure we came up with that name. But my point is whenever we have these conversations, it's always the answer. Like, it's always the medicine. It's always the thing to do, the strategy to like move through conflict, to express your, like, what's going on for you. It's just, I know, for like you said, this week you haven't been good. You haven't felt good. No. And in the past, I would make that such a problem. Like, it's like, if you're wobbling, I'm wobbling. But because you consistently keep just like naming what's happening for you, I'm like, cool, I'm going to get on with me. Yeah. Like, if you're wobbling, I'm actually solid. Which gives you permission to be in your wobble.
Yes.
You then don't have to put your wobble down to caretake for my wobble, because I'm like, oh, you're wobbling, I'm wobbling. So you can just focus on your own wobbles.
Yeah.
Say wobble again.
Yeah. And I think the best thing with this is self-revealing. It's just self-responsibility, vulnerability, self-awareness. It's like that trio of things together. Just really, like, if you've got that, like, you can't argue with that, and it's, if you can name it, then you can tame it as well. So it's by giving yourself the opportunity of just, I think, for what I sort of see in the couples or people that I've worked with or we've worked with, it's just not naming it. Like, if I can act or pretend like it's not happening, then maybe we can, white knuckle ourselves through this episode or whatever it might be. And it's like, no.
Well, I just think for so many people, they're just not even slowing down enough to even know what's happening for them. They just know they don't feel good. I don't feel good. The relationship doesn't feel good. And then we're reacting because I don't feel good. So it's just really getting to know yourself.
And I think too, it's, well, if that's the case, it's, if I don't feel good in the past, I would turn to vices. I would turn to maybe wanting to have a few, like, the common thing, not my choice, but it's like people go and have a vape or like cigarettes or alcohol or porn or something that they're noticing themselves wanting to turn towards, or increase social media consumption or whatever it is, where it's like, if I don't feel good, am I starting to use something as a vice, and it's actually taking away from my relationship, which then creates more of a problem. So I guess that my thought around this is there something that you can do that would support yourself in coming back to your, not only yourself, but to your relationship, to make sure that it's good? I think that's important as well, and just making sure that people have got an action plan in place, because it's not if it's going to happen, it's like, when is this going to happen? Because we all have periods of time where life gets busy and our capacity can get low as well. So having a bit of a plan, like we talk about a conflict plan, but it's like, what do we do in these moments where we are low capacity, and how can we, connect or support each other or support that process for each of us?
I think there's just a level of needing to know how to resource yourself. Like, that's why I always start by teaching someone about their nervous system.
Yeah.
It's like, it's the foundation. You're in charge of that. You need to clean up what's happening in your nervous system so your baseline is solid, so you know when you're not. And then what's the tools and strategies that you have to bring you back to baseline? Daily practice. Practice is in the heat of the moment when stress comes in. It's like, it's such an important part of this.
Really is. And I think, I would say that the guys that I work with in particular, it's how do I feel less defensive or feel less like attacked by my partner or nagged or whatever it is. And it's just noticing that if I'm feeling defensive, or am I feeling like antsy or bickering and that sort of thing, it's like, there's some overwhelm or there's a bit of stress here, and it's naming that. It's like really remembering, like, my partner is on my team here. So
you say that to me all the time. Yeah. You're like, you're a sweetheart, of course.
Yeah.
Let me come back.
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
like, I am a sweetheart.
Yeah, so it's like, can we just remember that in that moment of like, if I feel like my partner is all of a sudden my enemy, it's noticing for myself that I'm feeling dysregulated and I feel a bit overwhelmed or not quite right. So it's just like, okay, tools down, you know, like swords down. Can we just take 5?
I think one, like an indicator, when you notice that you're, this is men and women, humans,
Yeah, of course.
if you notice that you're defensive, then you've lost presence. You've actually, if you're defending something, you've lost contact with the present moment. You've lost contact with your partner, and that's always a sign to check in with yourself. It's like, what's going on for me that I need to defend something? You know, like what's actually happening for me that I actually am dysregulated because I'm not present.
Yeah, and it's like coming back to love. Can we come back to love? Can we come back to each other for this moment? And
not always.
Not always, no. And like, you know, like we've said in many other episodes, it's like, do we need to take 10 or 15 or an hour and come back and then reconnect?
That's why the conflict plan is important, because sometimes we can sit here and say, choose love, but we don't always choose love. It's like in those moments where you can't choose love, then you actually have that conflict plan that you've both agreed to outside of the trigger. So it's whatever works for you. It's like, I actually can't choose love right now. You're a problem. And I might be a problem, but I'm pretty sure you're a problem. So we're going to take some time to go and tend to our nervous systems, and then we come back.
Yeah. And again, could be coming back together and just saying 5 things that I love about you is, or whatever it might be that, you know, we've spoken a lot about this in our previous episodes, but it's like, how do you come back into repair with each other to really like co-regulate, self-regulate, and then, you know, acknowledge that, so these external factors aren't being such like running havoc in your relationship. Because again, your relationship probably, you know, potentially is probably great, you know, and you love each other and you care for each other, and it's like really managing stress.
What else is going on?
Yeah. And you know, and having that regular conversation of like, what's actually going on for me, what is happening, and what are we projecting into the future, like what's coming up, you know, like what's coming up in the future, what have we got coming up, what's happening, you know, what's going to bring, you know, us out of alignment or out of regulation with each other, and working towards that as well, like being a bit smarter and proactive about it. So yeah, feels good. Well, I think that's basically it. So again, if you're not already following us, Embodied Union on Instagram, I'm Lindsay B on Instagram.
I am Charlie S. Hannah on Instagram.
And together with Embodied Union, if you're in relationship and you would love some more insight or something more tailored, then we are so happy to have a conversation with you around your relationship and just making it amazing. So that's it for this week.
Thank you, sweet man.
Love you, critter.